What is going on, guys? My name is Theo and I love to talk about horror movies, but in today's episode we're going to be talking about Christopher Nolan's new film, The Odyssey. Now let me start this video off by telling you I am a very big Christopher Nolan fan. I think he is one of the biggest and most creative visionary directors in all of Hollywood. This man has made 13 films in his career and every single film is a box office success. Chris is coming off of Oppenheimer, which was an incredible success back in 2024. It won 7 of the 13 Academy Awards it was nominated for, made a ton of money at the box office, and has been recognized as one of the better films in filming history. And whenever I heard he was going to be going from Oppenheimer, which is a post-war movie, to The Odyssey, which is another pre- and post-war movie of the Trojan War, and a movie represented on one of the oldest pieces of literature out there, almost 27 to 2,800 years old, I was thrilled knowing that this man was going to be in charge of this. And folks, I will tell you that by far this is one of Christopher Nolan's best films. And that's very difficult to say because the man has a resume that is stacked. Almost every film that he's made has been a crucial box office success to Hollywood and a very creative outlet in his own right. We're talking about the man that has created a modern day Batman trilogy that did fantastic with The Dark Knight. We're talking about Inception, Oppenheimer, The Following. There's tons of movies that this man has made, well not tons, 13 to be exact, that he's made that have very crucial means in Hollywood that define filmmaking. I think that there should be a class in filmmaking education that is just around Christopher Nolan. I know they do that for like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and those folks. Christopher Nolan deserves one. Because yes, those other two people, they are great, they are fantastic, but he is a creative outlet in Hollywood that does things that not a lot of people do, and we'll touch base on a little bit of that a little bit further into this video and means of how this was shot, where it was shot, the surroundings about it, but it's just everything that he does with filmmaking makes you wonder, like, how the hell this man is pulling this stuff off. This is a man that has always operated with excellence, making you wonder just how he keeps going through these movies and making something so original and so out there that has never been done before, or something that just catches your attention to the point where like you are hooked in for the full 3 to 4 hour segment of this movie. In fact, this is probably one of those showcase films that will go down in history as a Christopher Nolan film that you can tell that just because he is a part of it, just how epic and how just fantastic of an experience it is, not just for the viewer, but for all the actors and actresses and people on set involved with it. And I know in this day and age, for the modern society of TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all these things, every other fucking week you have somebody out here on TikTok saying that every single movie they see is a masterpiece, or it's a generational defining moment, or it's the most epic film they've ever seen. And, you know, unfortunately, that's not the case with a lot of movies. But with The Odyssey, I can full out say, and even on this channel, I don't do it a lot. Like, you'll see me, I'll be giving stuff 2 stars, 3 stars, talking about the things I didn't like about movies. With this movie, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, without any hesitation in my mind, that this is one of the biggest masterpiece movies I have ever seen in my whole entire life. For me, from start to finish of this 3-hour film, I was locked in. There was not a dull moment about this movie. There wasn't anything I didn't like about the storyline. The way everything was shot was just incredibly superb. And we're going to touch base on that in just a few minutes about how this was shot and the surroundings about that. But this film should be and will be a masterpiece of a film that needs to be talked about for ages on end. And you guys know me, from all the stuff I've talked about over the years on this channel, I personally don't look at films as just an entertainment outlet. I look at everything that has to do with them, from their soundtrack to the logistical sides, to the cinematics, to the CGI, to the AI, to all that crap that's involved. I dig into it and try and pick it apart because that's what my brain tells me that I need to do, while also enjoying the lovelihood and the likelihood of these films that I've grown to experience over the years. This is absolutely one of those films, as a film fan, that in that 3-hour time period, every single scene that is shot, you're looking at it and you're thinking to yourself, how the fuck did they do this? How in God's name did they shoot this and make it look so real? Everything about this film is practical. Nearly everything about it. Not everything to a detail, but nearly every single thing in this film is practical. There's very little use of CGI, from the storms to the ocean to the Cyclops being played and scaled up and down in a lively suit. We're going to talk about all these things and we're going to jump into them a little bit more in depth. But as a film buff and as a film fan, you're watching this movie for the full 3 hours thinking to yourself, how in the hell did Christopher Nolan take this book and transform it into something so lively looking? One other thing I would love to recognize with Christopher Nolan before we jump into my positives and my negatives about this film is that he has, in his whole entire 13 film career, not stopped becoming better and more creative over the years. You keep wondering if he's going to hit that time period where it's just going to be the same old run-of-the-mill shit, right? If it's just going to be Christopher Nolan being Christopher Nolan, and that's what we should expect, kind of like Tim Burton. And no disrespect to Tim Burton, I love his movies. But he does make the same old stuff most of the time with different creative outlets with the same people, right? And with Christopher Nolan, he hasn't done that. Like, over the years, he continuously just gets better doing different stuff with different stories and different, like, creative looks of art that have not been done before. And I really appreciate that in a director. All right, so let's jump into what did I like about the Odyssey. I liked a lot about the Odyssey. There's not much that I didn't like about the Odyssey. Let's start off with the way that this movie was shot, and we'll kind of go from there. This film, we have talked about a little bit on how Christopher Nolan keeps changing the game. This is the first film in history to ever be fully shot on 70mm IMAX film. Never been done before. There's been segments in films where it's shot on 70mm, but there were definitely things that were changed throughout the years, right? You have segments where, like, there's not IMAX related, or there's things of that nature that they switch on and off to. This film is fully shot in full 70mm IMAX film, and it is precisionally shot. It is done so well and so creative that you feel like you are so immersed into this movie that you are going on this journey with Odysseus, that you are going through everything with Matt Damon, and you're just taking on the sands, the battles, the blood, the water, the creatures, and you're right there with him the whole time, and it is a lovely experience. I can't tell you how much of a good time I had watching this. I was fully immersed the whole 3 hours in this film, to where I was upset when the movie ended. And don't get me wrong, I know we live in a streaming and digital era. This film needs to be experienced in the theater, on the biggest screen you possibly can get to, with a whole loaded theater around you, with everybody touching their opinions on it and just talking about it. It needs to be experienced in the theaters. You can't do yourself the justice of seeing it in the theaters, even if you're going to buy it and watch it at home. I'm going to buy it and watch it at home, probably several times after seeing it. But you need to go see it in theaters. You can't do yourself the injustice of not seeing this in theaters. And it'll probably be leaving theaters pretty soon because it came out in July. It's almost the end of August. We're getting toward the middle of August now. Go see it while it's in theaters. And with the growing society that we have of movies where there's one released almost every week or every other week, there's a lot of movies that claim that you have to see this in theaters. In a realistic standpoint, there's only a handful of films that you can say you need to go experience this on the big screen. And you can't wait for all the others. This one you have to experience in an IMAX theater. I think the biggest, I guess, degree of an argument that people have for this film being made was if it was going to do something different, right? This is a story that is 2,700 years old. Everybody knows this story. If you haven't read this story, you know this story. It's been told a ton of times, whether it be Wishbone, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? You know it. It's the same story that's been done time in and time out with several different renditions. So a lot of people were worried how Christopher Nolan was going to put his spin on it. And he does that. He puts his Nolan aspect onto it. But he does it in ways that are different, not stuff that you're used to seeing from Christopher Nolan, but you can tell that it's that Christopher Nolan filmmaking. It's big box office budget. It's filmed on the 70mm IMAX. Everything was practical. Even there's a scene in this movie, and I don't want to give too much away in this, but there's a scene where real life bodies come up out of the sand, right? And for this scene, after doing some research on this film, there were people that were buried in the ground with breathing mechanisms so they could have them come up out of the ground, out of the sand, and live sand and clumps and everything fall off of them so they could get the best interactive experience from that shooting, right? The films, or the film out on the sea where all these storms are coming through and everything that's blasting these people in the face, that's all real. It's not set production. It's all real. Real life ocean, real life storms, real life boats. It's 100% scaled to real life. And I think that is what Christopher Nolan did to differentiate himself away from all the other renditions of this that make this stand out. Is probably the best rendition of this story that's been told since the Homer story itself. Something else I really liked on this, and of course because of my channel being predominantly horror, we're going to talk about this, all right? Spoilers here if you don't want to know what happens, but we're going to talk about this a little bit in depth. This, I think, is Christopher Nolan's, some scenes in this are Christopher Nolan's ways of saying and hinting to the horror side of movie communities, where he's dangling the dollar bill, you know? He's holding the dollar bill up on the fish line.
I got you $1. Oh, you almost had it.
And he's saying, come on, do you want it? Do you want me to do it? I'll do it. Do you want me to? Here. There's a couple really big scenes in this movie where I was sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, ooh, you know, and then I'm like, oh God, what? So there's a scene where these people get body morphed, and oh boy, if it's not one of the best scenes I've seen all year. It's like full out, like just non-CGI'd Play-Doh body morphine that makes you just go, what? And I know that there's been rumors of Christopher Nolan trying to touch base on something that has to do with horror. These scenes have me fully invested. I am full on board. Send it, do it now, be the next movie that he does. I don't care if it's Hansel and Gretel. I don't care. Sign me the fuck up. On top of that, the Cyclops sequence is terrifying. It puts you into a spine-tingling, chills-induced, like, darkness fear of what it would feel like to be trapped in a cave with a grizzly bear, okay? I was on edge during that scene just simply because of how it was shot and just the sheer, like, blood and the body, the horror and everything that was involved in it. I was just sitting there going, please let this man make a fucking horror film. Please let this man make a horror film. All right, folks, we are going to touch base on the cast because I thought the acting in this was perfect. okay? There's a lot of big name actors and actresses in this film. I'm going to look to my left here and read off some of them if I can't remember them. There's so many, but you don't feel like there's just so many big names in this film because none of them necessarily step out of line, you know, if that makes any sense. They don't step into that I'm better than you spotlight. Everybody just coexists very well in this film, and it all just kind of merges together well with the acting from everybody. But we have Matt Damon, we have Anne Hathaway, we have Tom Holland, we have Robert Pattinson, we have Mia Goth, we have John Bernthal. I'm going to look now. So we have Charlize Theron, we have Elliot Page, we have Zendaya, we have John Leguizamo, we have Ryan Hurst. I can keep going. None of them, outside of maybe Robert Pattinson a little, but that's Robert Pattinson for you, step out of line to where you're thinking like, wow, that's just too many people on the screen that are just two big name actors and actresses that aren't going to get along and this movie's going to suck. Not a single time, really, throughout the whole entire movie did I feel like there was anybody taking a designated spotlight, not even with Matt Damon playing Odysseus. One big thing I want to touch base on here is that just because this is a retelling of Homer's The Odyssey, they find ways to keep surprising you throughout the film. You know, Christopher Nolan, the cast, they find ways to keep surprising you from every trial that they go through, of every bad thing they go through, of every good thing they come to terms with. Every shot and every scene make you feel like you're experiencing something new in a story that is 2,700 years old. Now, this is the last thing I want to touch base on before I jump into like my mixed bag here, but the character of Sinon that Elliot Page is playing, I know there's a lot of controversy throughout the making of this movie because of Elliot Page being cast, right? I don't give a fuck about that. But I will tell you that the part that Elliot Page plays, whether it's about a 5-minute role, but it is a crucial, just crucial part of this movie that you need to pay attention to. And I loved it. I loved their performance, regardless of how little of a performance there was for the 5 minutes that Elliot was in this movie. I thought that it was fantastic, and it's something that I remember with only the 5 minutes of screen time that it's there. So I'm not going to touch base on my opinions on all of that because, quite frankly, I don't really give a shit. I just wanted to experience the movie itself and judge it for myself, because that's what you should do, not based off of everybody else's fucking opinion on something. If you care about something, cool. You like it, fantastic. If you don't, cool. You're allowed to do that too. Regardless, who gives a fuck, right? But the way that this was shot, the story behind that character of Sinon is so well done that it will probably sit with my memory banks on movies for a very long time. And I say that with a lot of praise involved. Alright guys, now with all that being said, let's jump into my mixed thoughts on this movie. And I only have like one or two to touch base on, okay? So my first mixed thoughts on this is that this was not told in linear storytelling, okay? This is supposed to be a retelling or whatever have you of the Odyssey. And the Odyssey is told primarily in like flashbacks. And you get some of that throughout the movie where Matt Damon and Charlize Theron, they're on a beach and they're talking about things and kind of flashbacking the scenarios that happen. But we needed more of like a lore touch base to round the edges on a lot of the action and the big scale moments. I think if we had some more of that, I mean, the movie then would have been like 3.5 hours long, and I would have been okay with that. Because I was, like I said, I was locked in the full 3 hours of this movie, and I didn't want to stop watching it. So another half hour, digging a little bit more into that lore, I think would have been super beneficial to this film. And maybe we'll get that in like a director's cut or something later on. Who knows? But I think that if they would have taken the little bit of just flashbacky scenes and made them more relevant, it would have made this story make more sense. All right, guys, now my last kind of like small gripe here is that with this being such a big budget and such a big scale film, the action scenes in it for me felt a little eh. And Christopher Nolan has always been one of those directors and filmmakers where his action sequences aren't the greatest, you know? Like the Dark Knight trilogy, that's probably the peak of Christopher Nolan's like action sequences. The rest of his films, where the action comes in, you always feel like there's something just a little bit off in it, you know? And it's a small gripe. For this one, I felt the same. I felt the same with this piece, that the action in it felt just a little bit off compared to what I was expecting. I was hoping for like giant budget scaled wars and these really just pivotal moments of action that come in, and you get that toward like the end of the movie, but going throughout the film you don't get a whole lot of that, and that's you know, frustrating for some that were experiencing or wanted to experience a Trojan War kind of scenario. So that's my only other big gripe on this. Now, before I give you my final score, I'm going to talk about my final thoughts of this film. And I do believe in my wholeheartedness that this film is a masterpiece in filmmaking. It is something that is uniquely done that we probably need to have Christopher Nolan do more of, right? And he will do more of. But I will tell you that I can't give it a perfect rating with it being a masterpiece in filmmaking, simply because I did find a couple things wrong with it. You know, in any situation, you're not going to find a nearly perfect to perfect movie. This is absolutely one of those films that you must see. You must see it in IMAX, you must see it in the theater, you must see it on the biggest screen possible. There are a couple little tidbits you can nitpick with though. So for that, I'm going to give this film a 4.8 out of 5. I definitely recommend you go to see it. It is one of the best films I have ever seen, and one of the best films I have seen in a very, very long time. Go check it out. I hope you enjoy it. I want to know what your thoughts are on it. Let me know in the comments below. Tell me everything you feel about the movie, how it was shot, some of your action-based sequences for you, and let me know, because my opinion is just my opinion on the movie. It's not the right opinion. I want to know what your guys' are too. So that'll do it for this one for me, guys. I appreciate everything you guys do. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Check under your beds, and stay safe out there, everybody.